I want to tell you about a moment that changed how I think about smart homes. I was sat in my office, in the dark, staring at a light that wouldn't turn on. Not because the bulb had blown, not because there was a power cut. The light worked fine, I just couldn't turn it on. My internet had gone down. And in that moment, sat there like an utter prat, I realised I'd built something I hadn't really thought through. Let me take you back to 2015. I'd just bought my first proper smart home device. A Philips Hue Go light. This one, as it happens. It could glow in different colours, came with a free remote, and it could be controlled with my phone? What? It's like I was in the future. I was hooked almost immediately. Within a few months I had Hue bulbs everywhere. Then I got a Samsung SmartThings hub because I wanted to add sensors and things that weren't just lights. Then I got an Amazon Echo, the first generation one that looked like a goth Pringle tube, because being able to talk to my house and have it respond felt like something from the Jetsons. And honestly, it was brilliant. Everything just worked. I'd come home and say, "Alexa, I'm home," and the lights would come on, the heating would adjust. I even had it play music when I entered. At least for a few days. That one got old really fast. Here's the thing though. At no point during any of this did I think about what was actually happening behind the scenes. I didn't think about where the data was going. I didn't think about what would happen if the services went down. I didn't think about the fact that my ability to turn a light on now depended on servers I didn't control in buildings I'd never seen, run by companies whose priorities weren't necessarily aligned with mine. I wasn't pro-cloud or anti-cloud, I just didn't think about it. It worked. It was fun. And that was enough. So back to that moment in my office. The internet had gone down, I don't even remember why, it was probably just my ISP having a wobble, but I wanted to turn the lights on. Alexa, turn on the office lights. Nothing. The Echo just started whining about not being connected to the internet. Fine, I thought I'll use the app. Pulled up my phone, opened the Hue app, and nothing. Couldn't connect because of course it couldn't. The Hue bridge needed to talk to the cloud to authenticate my app, and the cloud was unreachable because my internet was down. So I'm stood there, in my own home, in the dark, and I can't turn on the sodding lights. Then I remembered the living room lights have a Hue dimmer switch, a physical remote. So I walked into the living room, pressed the button, and yeah, the lights came on instantly. No internet required, no cloud, no authentication, just a button that talks directly to the bulbs. If I remember correctly, it really was that simple. I seem to recall it didn't even need the hub. Can you tell this video wasn't researched? And that's when it hit me. The living room worked because it had a local fallback. The office didn't work because the only way I'd set up to control those lights was through voice, which needed the Echo, which needed the internet, which needed... well, you get the idea. I'd built a chain of dependencies without even realising it, and one broken link brought the whole thing down. Eventually, something started to shift in me. I wasn't really looking for alternatives at the time because the whole thing felt like sci-fi. It never even occurred to me that it wasn't the best solution. It did get me thinking though, what else in my house depends on the internet to work? What happens if my ISP goes down for an entire day? Or a week? What if one of these companies decides to shut down a service or change how it works or start charging for something that used to be free? What am I actually in control of here? And the uncomfortable truth was not much really. I'd handed control over my home to a bunch of cloud services and I'd done it without really thinking about what that meant. Now look, I want to be clear about something. This wasn't a privacy epiphany. I wasn't suddenly worried about Amazon listening to my conversations or anything like that. Honestly, I used to be one of those, what? I've got nothing to hide, so why should I care, people? Oh, my sweet summer child. No, it was simpler than that. I just couldn't turn on a light in my own home because the internet was down. That felt wrong to me. Not morally wrong or anything, just practically wrong. Like, I'd obviously made a mistake somewhere along the line. I had identified a problem though, and my brain doesn't like problems that it can't fix, so I started to Google solutions. I didn't find any answers immediately, but clearly I'd made the algorithm pay attention because eventually it solved the problem for me. I honestly can't remember exactly how I found it. I think it was through YouTube. There was a channel called Bruh Automation that was doing tutorials, and another one called The Hookup with a guy called Rob who was talking about all sorts of clever stuff. Hell, it might have even been a Linus Tech Tips video, but eventually the algorithm started showing me something called Home Assistant. And it just looked like magic. I fell down a rabbit hole of videos showing people running their entire smart homes locally without depending on cloud services at all, and the power that a local custom system gave you. Oh, I wanted it so badly. Honestly, I didn't even realise, despite already being a networking nerd, that I could host my own smart home services. But yeah, turns out, of course you can. There's a whole community of people who've been doing exactly that, running a Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi or an old laptop, connecting their devices directly, building automations that work even when the internet is down. It wasn't easy to set up, if I'm being honest. It's still not simple today, but back when I started, which was about 2018 I think, it was a lot harder. Almost everything used config files. There was no community store for custom integration, so if Home Assistant didn't have an official integration for it, you were out of luck. But slowly, bit by bit, I started moving my smart home away from cloud dependency and towards something I actually controlled. These days my setup is pretty different from what it was back then. I got rid of all my Echo devices, every single one. I've got Apple HomePods everywhere now for voice control, partly because I'm already in the Apple ecosystem and partly because Apple's approach to privacy is... Alright, well, it's not perfect, but it's better than most. But honestly, voice control isn't even really how I interact with my smart home anymore. It's kind of secondary at best. Most of my stuff now runs through physical buttons and automations. Automations that run entirely locally on my local server. No internet required. My internet goes down, my lights still work, my heating still works, my automations still run, because none of it depends on anything that isn't already inside my home. The only thing I'm dependent on now is electricity. This bit's important, so stick with me for a second. I'm not telling you this story because I think you should do what I did. I'm not trying to convert you to the church of local control. Your smart home might be entirely cloud-based, and that might be absolutely fine for you. Seriously, cloud-based smart homes are a perfectly valid choice, as long as you know what you're signing up for. As long as you understand the trade-offs. As long as you're not being misled by companies that bury the downsides in terms and conditions that nobody reads. If somebody came to me tomorrow, somebody who's not particularly technical and just wanted their home to be a bit smarter, and asked me what they should buy, honestly I'd probably tell them to get an Amazon Echo and some smart plugs.
Wait, what?
I know, after everything I just said, right? But for someone just starting out, the Echo ecosystem is easy. It works out of the box. You don't need to configure anything, you don't need to learn YAML, you don't need to set up a server, you just plug it in and start talking to it. I mean, that's valuable. My advice would be, use it till it starts to annoy you. And it might never annoy you. You might be perfectly happy with how it works for years, and that's fine, but if it does start to annoy you, if you hit the limitations, if you get frustrated by the restrictions, if you find yourself wanting more control, then you'll know. And at that point, you could start looking at other options. You may find you even never hit those limitations. A lot of companies are slowly starting to get the message that local control is better for the consumer, and some of them are starting to improve things. The point isn't that cloud equals bad and local equals good. The point is that you should know what you're choosing and why. I should probably also mention, I'm not actually anti-cloud, not even a little bit. I use cloud services all the time. Notion, Google Workspaces, YouTube Studio, Cloud Code, Steam, to name but 5. All of them are cloud-based, every single one of them. Hell, I even recently purchased the Aura 4, a cloud-based smart ring. Review coming soon. But to be fair, I used all of those services in spite of them being cloud-based, not because of it. If somebody came along tomorrow with a local alternative that was genuinely as good, I would probably switch. But right now, for those specific use cases, the cloud options are just better, so I use them. And to be honest, when it comes to data, I still advocate strongly for using a cloud-based backup method. The difference is, I've thought about it. I've made a conscious choice about what I'm willing to depend on cloud services for and what I'm not. For my notes, fine. If Notion goes down for an afternoon, that's annoying, but I'll cope. Actually, I think they've got an offline mode now, but for my ability to turn on the lights in my own home, no. That needs to work regardless of what's happening with the internet or some company's servers or the latest outage affecting half the planet. I'm also really not willing to be bound by terms of service which may change at a moment's notice. That's where I've drawn the line. You might draw it somewhere else, and that's okay. So that's my story. That's how my smart home philosophy changed. It wasn't some dramatic conversion, it wasn't a data breach or a privacy scandal that woke me up. It was just standing in a dark room unable to turn on a light, realising I'd built something without really thinking about what I was building. In that moment, my smart home felt stupid. I'm not trying to convert you to anything. I'm really not. There are no affiliate links in this post. There's no agenda. If you're happy with your cloud-based setup, brilliant. Keep using it. Enjoy it. All I'm asking is that you think about it. That you understand what depends on what. That if you're handing control over your home to some cloud services, you're doing it deliberately with your eyes open and knowing the trade-offs. If you want to learn more about Home Assistant and local control, I've got a whole series called What the Heck, where I explain this stuff for beginners. I'll put a link on screen and in the description. And if you've got questions or you just want to chat about smart home stuff, come find me on the Foxy's Lab Discord. Links in the description. I'm in there fairly often and I genuinely enjoy talking about this stuff. Now go enjoy your smart home. Ta-ra.